AEW this past Wednesday night. Who else got into it in the back? Anybody by the time the show was over, or had they cleared that out when they pulled Sammy and Andre Olio apart and made Andre leave the building?
The only other incident I heard about was there was a long talk between Chris Jericho and himself in the mirror.
Well, but that's not unusual.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we'll talk about the television program now since nobody else got into a real fight. They led again with the best match on the program, and this not only was the best match on the program, they can do it if they try. This was an example of what I have been talking about all along, is that smart workers, excellent workers, people who know what they're doing in this business, they work with people of different levels in a different fashion. And obviously, let's say this at the start, old Wheeler is not ready. And by the way, if you have to pick a name, that's not his given Christian birth name. And if you had to pick a name to be a wrestler, why is Wheeler Yuta the name you'd pick? But besides that.
You know what Howard Baum said? Howard Baum said this, and I can't unsee it now, and it's so funny, but it's wrong. He was reviewing in the Mothership group, the Dynamite show, and he said MJF versus normal superhuman. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
He's not ready for this spot on national television. I'm not even saying he never will be. Maybe I am, but definitely not now. We all know that. And for whatever reason, like Daniel Garcia, who's in the same boat, Tony has decided that these two, of all the people that he could have chosen to smash over like this, these two are what he's going to do. So they obviously instructed or wanted Yuta to be shined up by MJF in this match, but MJF had to be the one to put it together because it was completely different from almost any other AEW match you see. It made sense. There was a story to it. If you noticed, MJF, and when I watched this match, I was tired. Because there was a fiasco with the power and the DVR, and I watched this match after I'd seen the rest of the program, but I was tired. I didn't want to take notes. I just wanted to watch it because I was convinced I wasn't going to like it because I thought here's going to be Yuta kicking the shit out of MJF and whatever. And yes, they did shine Yuta, but if you noticed, MJF, he built the thing. They want to see Yuta come off the top rope. So what does MJF do? He takes it away from the people and makes them wait for it. He's there. He rolls away when Yuta goes to the top. And that way the people don't get to see what they wanted to see. So they're mad at fucking MJF for taking it away from them. But when he finally hit it, then they exploded. And at the same time, MJF, he keeps attention on himself. The smart-ass facial expressions, the heelish things that he did. He put Yuta over and made Yuta competitive, but at no time was Yuta beating him within an inch of his life to where you could see desperation on his face that how in the world am I going to win this thing? You didn't see that because a lot of it was mat wrestling where Yuta could get false finishes out of it in 2 counts, or he could duck under and surprise MJF, the heel, with his better wrestling because he's the baby face. But it wasn't like if there was somebody wearing MJF out with a kendo stick or throwing him through furniture. So this is how a top-level main event star works with a middle card guy trying to help make him look better and still at the same time not making it look like that's the best that MJF can ever do, beating this guy by the skin of his teeth. Does that make any sense to you, Brian?
It makes perfect sense, and I think you just described what was actually happening there.
And that's why I thought it was the best example of a match of this kind that they've ever had on the program. And again, if it was Out of anybody that might be ready for that spot, you can see a few, pick them. It would have been even better, but as it was, this was the best match start to finish that Yuta's ever had because he listened and it made sense, and they didn't do shit that was either preposterous or lacking in logic, or that would give you the impression that MJF is cooperating with his own demise or downfall. So by that, it was an excellent piece of business ending. Obviously, the finish was, one of Tony Khan's finishes, and it has to be screwy, and there's people coming in, and there's goddamn, outside interfere, whatever the fuck. But MJF wins, and that debacle didn't take place where MJF would actually do a job. My God, even they're that smart. And they did a great job with what they had, with the conditions that prevailed and what they were working under. This couldn't have been any better, I didn't think. So let MJF lay out everybody's matches, and you'd have a stunning television program. What'd you think?
Certainly the high point of the show. It's a good thing that this was also by far the most viewed segment, or segments, I guess it may have rolled into the second segment, that AEW had, because here's another thing we have to say before we even talk about the match, because it's becoming more and more apparent and the ratings are starting to bear it out. MJF's now the biggest star in AEW. I know Moxley and Jericho have been there for a while and they're big stars. MJF is right now, he's already the biggest star in AEW.
Well, let's break that down a minute, because I may be able to say that better for you. Because I know what you're trying to say, but a lot of people are going, oh, Brian Last lost his mind. He's on MJF's dick to the point where now he's saying he's a bigger star than Chris Jericho and John Michael, blah, blah, blah.
He is?
Well, he's not necessarily a bigger star, because a bigger star would indicate more people know him and he's a big major presence. And actually, because of Jericho having 20 years of television and Moxley being in the WWE and everything, they may still be bigger stars. What you're talking about is right now in AEW, who do the people want to see more? Who do they want to watch? Who do they want to see on television? A more attractive star. Who's the next big star?
And also, who does the network want? They recognize what's going on right now, too.
Yeah, because you may like filet mignon, but filet mignon, you've been eating filet mignon for, well, I don't know, maybe in Jericho's case, maybe we ought to talk about canned ham. But nevertheless, you've been eating that fucking steak for a long time, but along comes this delicious seafood dish, and you got to try, and MJF is the delicious new dish. He's still fresh. He's still always good. He still always gets a reaction. He's new. He's different. He's unique. He attracts attention wherever he goes because of that. And Moxley does same thing, and Moxley always does, and Jericho does same thing Jericho always does, and even if you like it, you've seen it. So MJF may not be a bigger star. MJF may be the most important star, the most attractive star, the star that people want to look at right now and want to watch. And honestly, he's running away with it. And Punk's not on television to give him any competition in terms of the promos and the audience engagement. I don't know anybody in the company. Maybe Danielson is the guy who can put together matches that, when he's allowed to and has an opponent that'll go along with it, that make as much sense and are as exciting and logical and get everybody over and put everybody in the right place. But MJF's got a little bit of everything, and nobody else has his package. See what I did there?
And you want to talk about MJF? He was in great shape here. Maybe the best shape we've ever seen him in the ring. Wheeler Yuta looks like he's on the way to take a Peloton class. You know what I mean? So you're looking at the two of them standing there, and one of them looks like a wrestler. Even though he's not 6'5" or anything. He looks like a wrestler. The other guy they're force-feeding Wheeler Yuta. And there's a segment of the audience that likes it, and they've done everything. They put him with Moxley and Claudio and Regal He's wrestling all these guys that are already established. While FTR and Wardlow were kind of buried, Garcia and Yuta became Tony Khan's biggest pet project. And they're not giving up. Even though these guys can't pull ratings unless they're in there with an MJF, because we've seen what happens when they're in there with Jericho, the ratings go down. But they're forcing these guys, and I think Yuta's all right. And I hope he fills out at some point. But they're pushing him way too hard for who he is and what he's going to mean to that company. I hope I'm wrong, because they're not going to give up. I hope he ends up being just a phenomenal wrestler and establishes some real charisma. I hope I don't have to keep thinking of him as the normal superhuman now. But this match was all about MJF. And that goes into the second thing I wanted to say, because you didn't really address it. What the fuck was the post-match? They're teasing the babyface MJF turn, which I think more than anything, this match pointed out what a mistake that would be. He's the only working heel they have there in the ring. They're going to make him a babyface? Why? Because Chris Jericho's trying to convince Tony that's the thing to do? So I don't like that post-match stuff where they're teasing MJF as a babyface, and then he runs from Regal.
Well, MJF always backs down when it's face-to-face or the odds are even or whatever. I didn't have a problem with that. And also Regal's wearing brass knuckles. And also Regal's tougher than everybody else on the roster. So I, didn't have...
Yeah, it took him 10 minutes to get into the ring.
Well, but at least he made it. But yes, and I agree. And I don't know what's going on with this. Oh, I didn't ask you to help me business with the blah, blah, blah. It would have been, if they'd have gone for the handshake and fucking MJF would have shook his hand and kicked him in the balls, it'd been perfect. Perfect and get out. But nevertheless, here's another thing. And I've sat in on these meetings in the WWF, and I assure you, just because Vince is not there, they're still having these same kind of meetings. You know what Triple H is going to ask about prospective talent? Because they have their people, they're watching shows, and they have Regal was a scout. And they have people in these positions where they watch everybody and everything and blah, 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 see who fits their needs. But you know what they're going to look at that MJF. Look at him 3 years ago when the company went on the air. Look at him 2 years ago. Look at him now. He's put the work in the gym. He's in the best shape of his life. He's gained size, so he looks legitimate, but he's not fat nor weighed down. He's obviously, his work has, and they made a big deal of saying he hadn't wrestled in AEW in 129 days. The fuck of... But anyway,
the commentating is a whole nother problem. It's a disaster show-wide. Show-wide.
That really gets a guy over. Yeah, he hadn't wrestled in 4 months. But again, the WWF or WWE, when they have meetings about talent, prospective talent, who's out there, who are they looking for, they look at that. Not only has his work improved, not only does his quarter hours get ratings, not only are his interviews at another level than almost everybody in the business except Heyman and a couple other people. He's transformed his body. He's grown up. He carries himself like a star. He is and lives his gimmick. Those are all important things that in the WWE and in that, whether developmental system, training system, or just system, they take note of. But meanwhile, here's the same guy that would be getting every kind of push in the world under the WWE umbrella by the basis of the parameters of what they look for in talent. And over on the other side, he hasn't wrestled on television in 4 months. And I know he was gone with the contract schmabada, but he's been back for how long now? What was it? Over a month. So anyway, I don't know what they're doing with the finish, but this was the shining moment of the show. And then, honestly, as I mentioned, because I had a power failure and all this other stuff this week, the next match was Darby Allin and Jay Lethal, and I would have loved to have seen it, but by the time that I was able to view things, I was running late, but Darby Allin beat Jay Lethal. And now apparently Jay Lethal is mad or upset at his cohorts too.
And they did the handshake shit too at the end of this.
Yeah. So if you'll notice, there's a pattern developing where now they're going to do, I swear to God, it was the WWF program we said last week. They did the same finish in 3 matches in a row. Same basic deal. Now they're doing it on this show. But the next match on the program was a crime against nature. And I want to take just a second on this. Wardlow and Brian Cage. Old Brian Cage reappears. I didn't even look at the match in terms of, you know, whether they did a good job or not. I look at the match in terms of why would you do this? Putting Brian Cage looks like a freak of nature as a physical specimen. And he's so muscular and defined, but yet thick and powerful and blah, 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 that he's somebody that you look at. And remember when we first saw him, we said, boy, they might be able to do something with this guy. And we watched him work a couple times, said, okay, well, now we know why they can't. But to put him in the ring with Wardlow, it made Wardlow look like he's a piece of shit. Nobody's physique can compare with this fucking guy's, but he's the shits in the ring. He's robotic. His matches make no sense. He just wants to do moves. He's rotten. And so what they did was they matched Wardlow up with a guy who's bigger and more impressive physically, even if he's not taller, and at the same time had a shitty match with him. Nobody cares about Brian Cage, the fans, the people, they don't give a shit. But he's kicking the shit out of Wardlow, and Wardlow's selling his ass off for him. So this was and I mean, and I'm pretty sure that he set the record for not audibly, but visually talking to his opponent on a television match in this thing. Because all you saw was Cage's lips moving. So apparently he was calling it. And somebody in there probably said, yeah, Cage has more experience. He's been wrestling longer than Wardlow. Let him call it. Fucking hell. So again, Wardlow was up there with the people 3 months ago. And now they're just doing everything they can to neutralize his best points. Goldberg being manhandled by a preliminary guy with a great physique is kind of what they just did here. So, and then Cage superplexed Wardlow off the top rope. And I get Prince Nana. I like Nana. Prince Nana's there now, but he's with Brian Cage. And again, Wardlow was selling like Ricky Morton. Cage was getting multiple 2 counts. And then finally, just when they decided they'd had enough, Wardlow just made his comeback and hit the 4 power bombs. That's all they want to see now is the power bombs. The match was brutal. And then, oh my God, as soon as he wins the match, here come 2 random fucking giant shaggy Samoans that we've never seen before. And they start getting heat on Wardlow, and Samoa Joe hits to try to save. But the numbers are still against them, and there's more heat. And then here comes FTR's music, and they come out in street clothes, and you can tell they're thrilled at having to come out and wipe up this mess. They walk purposefully to the ring, and the heels just step out, but the big tattooed Samoan didn't want to back off from Cash. He went out to the apron and just stood there, and Cash goes up, and he's just standing there. So there was a legitimate shoving incident. I thought we were going to have something else to report on. And then Joe came over from the other side of the ring with some element of force to make the point, and the fucking Samoan got down on the tattooed Samoan got down on the ground. And the Samoans, apparently their name of their team is the Gates of Agony. And much like the heartbreak of psoriasis, they didn't get over with me. So this is setting up an 8-man tag, which what better place to hide the best tag team in wrestling and poor old Wardlow than in an 8-man with poor Samoa Joe and this group of numbnuts that they're going to have to fucking fight. Your thoughts?
They should name their pay-per-view pre-show the Gates of Agony. I think that would be more appropriate. I guess Brian Cage made some apologies to get back in that locker room. I'd like to know more about that. I'll find out relatively soon after I say that. Look, Brian Cage works one kind of match, despite the fact that even though he's not tall, he's built like a monster. He wrestles like a cruiserweight. And if you've seen his match, you've seen his match.
Yeah.
It was impressive when Wardlow hit that standing, not standing, but that Frankensteiner early in the match. It was impressive. But Wardlow just needs to be squashing people.
Well, it would be impressive if that was the most impressive thing that a big man did in the match.
Yeah.
But there's goddamn Cage superplexing the motherfucker off the top rope and doing all this goofy shit.
You know, another thing, and I was going to bring it up if you had reviewed the Darby Allin Jay Lethal match, which was a good match on paper. Well, I shouldn't say on paper. It was a good match, but the crowd was dead. The crowd's lethargic, and it's been going on now for multiple shows. You know, a lot of people pointed out this is the return to DC where they ran the first Dynamite and they had however many thousands there, 12,000. This time there were less than 4,000. I don't think that matters, but the fact that the people who are there aren't reacting to everything the same way, that's something to worry about. People reacted to FTR because they're thinking, where the fuck are FTR? They got over as the most popular tag team in professional wrestling, and then they never wrestled again on TV in a tag team match. It makes no sense whatsoever. FTR were out. People were happy to see them. I think Tony's going to definitely try to have Samoa Joe and Wardlow as a tag team. I don't want to just rip on everything, but I just hate the booking. The booking's so bad right now. And they're shoving Ring of Honor now down everyone's throat. And I hate to say it like that, but I like Prince Nana. He just shows up all of a sudden. He's got a faction. They're now in the mix with this. Every match now is the handshakes. I don't know. I don't like the direction of like almost anything in AEW right now.
Again, they're assuming that everybody watching this television show knows the Ring of Honor, Code of Honor, blah, 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 and it's a big deal, and et cetera, in the fans' minds. And a lot of people may say, what the fuck's going on here? And again, I don't care what promotion you're pushing. An 8-man clusterfuck like this is not going to get anybody anywhere. Speaking of clusterfucks, the next match was Willow Nightingale, Athena, and Toni Storm with Saraya against Serena and Jamie Hayter and Penelope Pitstop with Dr. Britt Baker and Reba. And the babyfaces won. And then Britt Baker and Saraya squared off and had, if you were trying to have a hockey fight with a Fabergé egg, that's what they did. We still don't know whether Saraya can do anything because they just grabbed each other, swung their fists in the general vicinity of each other, and nobody went down. And there was big schmoz with the other girls, and the heels bailed, and then Saraya hit a kick on Reba. And that was that.
You know, it's sad how bad the women's division is because this match actually had some talented people. Jamie Hayter's making a case for being the best in-ring female in the whole business. In terms of in-ring, obviously not booked well or anything else, and she hasn't shown the personality yet to really be a top person, but she probably... Let's see what happens when they finally give her a chance here. Penelope Ford ain't bad. So she's pretty athletic and pretty good in there. Serena Deeb's pretty good. You know, the Saraya thing is the thing that feels like it's being forced right now. And the story is that now AEW cleared her medically, so she's going to maybe work with Britt Baker.
How is that possible that if she was able to be cleared medically, that the WWE wouldn't have cleared her medically, especially while she was under contract to them and they were paying her?
Maybe they were just waiting for her contract to expire.
Maybe they said, well, she can't get cleared medically to our standards, so maybe she should go somewhere where the standards are lower.
So the women's division has been booked horribly. Now they got Saraya there. Notice the pops for Saraya are not what they were for the first week's surprise debut.
The Acclaimed celebrated National Scissoring Day. I've seen National Cheeseburger Day, National Pizza Day, National Puppy Day. When I was a kid, we didn't have all these national days. Who is in charge of making these national days? Is it a board? Is it a committee? How do we determine what day is a national day for something?
I have no idea.
Well, Google that. If you won't Google whether fucking sheep is legal in Japan, at least you can Google that. Anyway, was absolutely ridiculous, but the people loved it, and they did it well. At least the Acclaimed and Billy. They've got fire. They've got oomph. Bowens did great. The material I wrote is preposterous, but they sound like they mean it. It's that line that you kind of have to bump up against but can't cross, where it's ridiculous, but the person looks like they believe it, mean it, are enjoying it, whatever, and you kind of get swept up in it. The people love these kids. And so, again, this wasn't, it got long, but it wasn't bad. And of course, Billy presented the Acclaimed with giant golden scissors, and there, Tony Schiavone's comment. By the way, did you see somebody tweeted 2 random matches? The Tony Schiavone commentary, like we asked it at one of the shows that we did last week.
No, the stuff during the Acclaim segment was the stuff we really need transcribed. I think I may have it too. I'll look.
Well, I've got one of them, but the tweet was, he only says like 6 or 7 lines per match anyway. But as soon as the giant golden scissors get presented, Tony says, "Oh, this is so much fun."
He's the worst commentator in wrestling.
Okay, Tony, bless you. I love you. We've known each other since the 80s, but goddamn it, the announcer is not supposed to say that like that. You're still supposed to be the goddamn announcer, the salesman of the product, the person in charge of the television program. I can see somebody saying, "Well, folks, these guys are out there," but you don't just laugh along with it in that respect, like that you're just having so much fun because you're the announcer. You're not. All right.
It's not as bad as when they do it during matches. Schiavone and Excalibur.
Tony did baseball. He did real sports. He's done real sports on radio for years. He didn't do real sports like that. This whole thing, I know most of the show is a joke, and he probably thinks it's a joke because he started in real wrestling, but don't talk about it like a joke. So anyway, the crowd, everybody scissored their neighbors, and Castor closed with asking everybody to come together in a bipartisan scissor to unite the country. And here comes Swerve. Now, where is Keith Lee now? Is he hurt again? Is he shooting a movie? Why is both of the guys that lost the tag team title that are pissed at the Acclaimed, why are they not together now?
I don't know. Are people still dealing with hurricane issues? Is he in Florida?
Well, it's been a goddamn week, one would think.
Well, still, if you have a lot of flooding and everything, I'm not saying that's the case, but you could be dealing with it still. I don't know why Keith Lee wasn't there.
All righty. Well, he cut a heel promo, did Swerve, and next week in Toronto, we get Billy versus Swerve. And okay, and that's not bad. Maybe Swerve and Keith Lee will get some heat on the Acclaimed father figure. But then suddenly, here comes Mark Sterling. So the segment had been good. The interview had been good. Scissoring Day, people loved it. It might have gone a little long on television, but we got there. We got Swerve. We got the match for next week. And then here comes Mark Sterling, and everything goes to shit. Because, again, he's not trying to be a real manager. He's being a comedy buffoon. And he wants to help the Acclaimed beat Swerve and Lee by them joining his. He's so phony. And so the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn beat up Sterling, and Billy accepts the match with Swerve. But then Sterling disappeared after getting beat up, and then the baby faces all scissored each other. until why Sterling's presence was not even necessary. Swerve could have made the challenge. Billy could have fucking accepted it, and everybody could have scissored. And nobody needed to take any bumps in that segment. And Sterling meant nothing, like usual. So that mucked the whole thing up at the end. They almost made it. What do you think?
I agree with you about the material. I didn't like this, just because I don't like this style of segment on a wrestling show. I don't find it enjoyable, but I recognize that everyone there does, and that's what makes this acceptable. When we see too many people doing bad material and no one reacts, the people in that room were eating up everything they were doing, and that's why it works. When Swerve came out, I have to say, I love him as a heel, and I can understand now why Triple H wants him back so badly for Hit Row. I like Swerve a lot as a heel. He feels natural on the mic. Let's see how they fuck this up. And I completely agree with you about Mark Sterling. Anytime you see Mark Sterling, he's in the cringe crew. There's a bunch of people in AEW, as soon as they appear on TV, you cringe. And Mark Sterling's one of the leaders of the cringe crew, and no one wanted to see any of that. It was unnecessary.
Well, speaking of unnecessary, the next match was Hangnail Page against Rush. And
Roosh.
Yeah, well, you do and you'll clean it up. So I skipped this. Honestly, the finish was, I don't want to look at that empty-headed, know-nothing that's never done anything in this business. Maybe if he listened to advice, old Hangnail, I would watch his matches. But the finish was Rush hitting the sloppiest, most dangerous-looking pile driver that I have ever seen for a 2 count. And then seconds later, Page was 100%, leaped up, hit a clothesline, jumped over the top rope, jumped back over the top rope with a flip, and hit a buckshot lariat 1, 2, 3. So somehow he not only has a superhuman neck. Did you see the pile driver? It was like a double arm. Picked the guy up like he was going to pedigree him, but picked him up and then jumped up, and he didn't have control of fucking Page. He didn't land flat. He couldn't even execute it properly. And I wouldn't even have wished that on Adam fucking Page. But that, I would have never taken that in a million fucking years. And I don't know why they let him give it to anybody. But it, fortunately, like I said, it didn't hurt Page, because within 3 seconds, he was 100% and doing his moves full force. Did I miss anything here?
No, it was not a match you would like. Roosh seems to have kind of taken the place of Andrade. He now has Jose the assistant with him, and he dresses like Andrade and acts like Andrade, and the promo backstage earlier. I'm with you on Adam Page. I think he's full of shit. I don't know why they're giving him any kind of push or any kind of wins, but I guess that says a lot about AEW management too. Although some would argue he's been a pawn in this whole thing, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, he's not bright enough to be the leader, but he should know who to follow.
Well, he's not bright enough to know who to follow either. Yeah. Nothing else really to say about this. I mean, there's right now, it seems like AEW is really capped with talent right now, especially top-tier talent, so I can understand for that reason why they would turn back to Adam Page. He is a former world champion. But I don't know. This is the part of the show here. The women's match didn't really lose the audience. Everything from this point on, the audience disappeared. They decided to leave the TV. Adam Page was their world champion, but people don't care enough to tune in to see him.
Well, it wasn't over, because here comes Private Party to the ring, because they're involved somehow with their rotating managers. But then Moxley comes out to make sure that Private Party turns around and walks off, which they do. And then Moxley cuts promo on Page, and they go head to head, and Page is trying to make mean faces, and here deja vu all over again. 2 baby faces about to have a world title match. Again, October 18th in Cincinnati, Moxley's hometown.
Yeah, he can't be. I didn't even think about Cincinnati. I was just going to say anywhere. I don't think Adam Page could be a babyface against Moxley right now in AEW. And that's not even referring to like the backstage drama, just how Moxley's over with that crowd.
So it was basically what you would expect from Moxley. And, then he goes to leave and Page calls him back. And Moxley starts talking to him again. They bleeped shit. They're bleeping shit everywhere now on AEW. And then Moxley tells him again to watch his mouth and walks off and leaves him again.
Where did he come from?
Very bizarre.
Where did he come from when Private Party came out? Where was Moxley?
I guess he was at the fucking concession stand getting a hot dog.
That's what I want to know. Where is the character of Jon Moxley supposed to be all show? So that he's ready to just walk out there, not run out there.
They ought to have cutaways every time they go to a commercial break, no matter what's going on. They ought to have a cutaway to a fucking card table in a parking lot where Moxley's putting his boots on. And then the next match was Dino Douche against the fake midget luchador that weighs 120 pounds, who he beat quickly and then started getting more heat on. And then Jungle Boy came out and hit Dino with a chair. And Dino took the bump to the floor where Christian Cage was holding him back. And Jungle Boy got the microphone and told Dino that he used to be his best friend, but he chose Christian and broke my heart.
You're not doing it justice. He was screaming at him, "You are my best friend!"
But you chose him and broke my heart. And we're not even going to make the obvious called for romantic entanglement jokes. But is that a thing that a grown man says to another grown man? And Jungle Boy sounds both fake and like a dork at the same time. You can tell that this is memorized verbiage he's reciting because he does it with such little emotion. But it sounds like that if you can't even put it in adult male verbiage, you must be of just a fucking blithering dork at the same time. So poor Jungle Boy's got a broken heart.
And again, we'll talk about the ratings breakdown, but people tuning out. Jungle Boy's not causing anyone to stop and want to see him. And I think it could have been different, and it may have been different early on, but it could have been a lot different. They have booked him into the dirt.
Well, remember, I love this guy at the start because I said he's got an intangible personal charisma to look at him. And when he has veterans on him that are leading him in the ring and his matches make sense because of that, and he sells, he gets sympathy, and he has fiery athletic ability to make comebacks. But the problem is not only he has not grown, he's not expanded, he's not gotten better, but he's been in more matches than 80% of the matches he's been in are with the rest of the fucking trampoline cowboys that bring out his worst instincts, and all he's doing is holding hands and flipping. And ultimately, apparently, I've never met him, but he apparently has the personality of fucking wilted cabbage. We saw that he made a statement on the internet that he runs and hides when they try to get him to do promos because he doesn't like to talk on camera. And now, once we've heard him do it a bunch, we know why. There's no personality there. There's no passion there. He can't fucking take command of the space, the room, the arena, whatever, verbally. And so he's stalled. And there's been nobody that, if they made him a project and only put him in with guys that could teach him, he might be better along, but I don't think you can, at this point, you can't teach personality unless you start giving him some kind of electric shock therapy or something at this point. Anyway, the main event of the evening was Jericho and Guevara versus Garcia and Danielson. So again, Daniel Garcia in the last segment, old Wheeler in the first segment, way in over their heads in deep water. And Sammy was obviously spared from being sent home so that it didn't fuck up Chris Jericho's fucking big angle and this main event tag team match that lost I heard it was exactly 300,000 viewers from the start of the program, and it was heavily advertised all night long, and it lost 300,000 viewers from start of the program to finish. And not only did Sammy get to stay after instigating another backstage brawl, and I've had people say, oh, they said Sammy didn't do anything. Andrade was the one that threw the first punches. I'll tell you what Sammy did. Sammy got on Twitter and told this fucking guy, hey, fuck you. You're a loser. You're a favor hire. If it wasn't for your father-in-law, you wouldn't be here. Why don't you fucking go ahead and quit? I'll see you on Wednesday. So what the fuck? He saw him on Wednesday. So if Andre got sent home and is sitting in his house going, ole, ole, oh, all by himself, then Sammy ought to be sitting there with Ty Mello Conti on his lap, pontificating about his goddamn drawbacks and fucking behavior as well. But anyway, not only that, he wrestled and got the prestigious victory over Daniel Garcia. Garcia got a cloverleaf on Sammy, and Jericho reached in and hit him in the head with the Ring of Honor title belt, and Sammy covered him 1, 2, 3. So there you go. 300,000 people decided, fuck it, we do not want to hang around and watch that.
Nobody wants total nonstop Jericho, and that's what they're getting in every Jericho segment.
And what else can you say about that match? And that's pretty much what we've said. And that was the show. And again, the ratings went from, what was it, close to 1.2 almost to 800-some thousand.
Well, here are the ratings breakdown. I'll give you this right now.
Okay.
The show started, Wheeler Yuta versus MJF. And by the way, these are courtesy of WrestleNomics, who posted them. 1,179,000 viewers. That's the peak. Segment 2, which is the last 4 minutes of the match, as well as a Jericho Appreciation Society promo and Lethal versus Darby starting, 1,155,000, so a very slight drop-off. Segment 3, the last 7 minutes of Lethal versus Darby, Brian Cage's promo, and Wardlow versus Brian Cage, 1,084,000. So that's the first significant drop. The last 7 minutes of that match, and the post-match angle, and Britt Baker's promo was segment 4, 1,074,000, which goes into segment 5, the first segment of the 9 o'clock hour, 1,058,000 for the women's 6-person tag match, and Rush's promo. The Acclaimed segment, 1,013,000, and then segment 6, segment 6. Segment 6, which was Madison Rayne and Sky Blue's promo with Anna Jay and Ty Conti, as well as Rush versus Adam Page, 953,000 viewers. The next segment, which was the Luchasaurus versus Fuego del Sol match, with also Jungle Boy, as well as a Trent Beretta Pac promo video, and a promo from Willow Nightingale, Jade Cargill, and the Baddies, 944,000. And the final segment, Daniel Garcia and Bryan Danielson versus Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho, 879,000. The biggest drop-off of the night.
Well, there you have it. So,
what does that tell you? The fact that MJF, is it just because he was in the first segment? Now, you know what?
Well, no,
it's interesting. We just said on the show, we were talking about the ratings recently, how Jericho versus Moxley held the number to the end, remember?
Yeah.
And then it was Jericho versus Garcia that didn't. And we said, oh, well, there's the difference between two main eventers and not. Now you realize they don't even want to see Jericho. The drop-off is Jericho. If Jericho's in the last segment of the show, people don't care enough to stay.
And you can't argue with that because the numbers are bearing it out. And it's not, they had a decent audience up until seg 6 and 7. And then it was just this last match. But again, when they advertise a match that people want to see for the main event, they stick around for it. And you go back to the days of Raw and Nitro battling it out. the last segment was always the highest, and it was still at the same time of night. Same time of night. It was always the highest rated segment of the program. The programs didn't lose viewers, they gained viewers. Because people wanted to see the main event. It was somebody they wanted to see. So, and let's mention this real briefly, because talking about things that people want to see or don't want to see, AEW also had 2 hours of national television on Friday night. The regular Rampage and the Battle of the Belts, which they have so many of. And when you look at the lineup, who would want to see any of this? It's YouTube level, fucking dark match level stuff on national television.
And it's I was going to just say too, and it's the stuff they build up on Wednesday, and people still don't want to see it.
Yep, Moxley on the Rampage show was the only legitimate star on that program. And on the Battle of the Belts, honestly, FTR, if you can call them legitimate stars the way that they are booked. Listen to these matches real quick, and then, folks, we're done with AEW. I know you can't wait. Rampage was Moxley, Claudio, and Wheeler Useless against Rush and Private Party. Pac and Felix and Penthouse against the Dork Order. Anna Jay and Ty Meloconti against Madison Rain and Sky Blue. And Tony Nese and Josh Woods against the Varsity Blondes. Every single one of these names, except for the Blackpool Combat Club fellows, are usually used to do jobs and in shitty matches. And then the Battle of the Belts for the prestigious Atlantic title that nobody gives a shit about. Pac against Trent.
All Atlantic.
All Atlantic. The whole ocean. Pac against Trent.
I guess so. I guess that is what it is.
Yeah. And for the TBS title, Jane Cargill against Willow Nightingale. And for the Ring of Honor tag team title, FTR against those 2 fat Samoans that didn't even want to jump out of the fucking ring for him. Gates of Agony. That's 2 hours of national television time. Anyway. You know what the problem is, don't you?
Yeah, the booking's never been worse.
No, it's that they're not listening to the right people.
That's true.
See, what Tony Khan is doing is he's listening to the voices in his head. And he's doing what they tell him to do. But the problem is, he doesn't have his Raycon wireless earbuds in. So those are not really announcers or broadcasters or people that he's listening to that might know what the fuck that they're talking about. It's his own psychopathic voices inside his head that's giving him bad advice, because the first thing that he should do is know not to listen to himself, right?
You're asking me to confirm that Tony Khan should not listen to himself?
Yes.
In anything or just in wrestling matters?
Just if anything. If he says to himself, he says, self, I ought to turn left, he ought to turn right.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I would say
he should go against booking. He should go against every natural instinct that he has. And he should listen to other people. And they'll sound great if he's listening to them on those Raycon wireless earbuds. Folks, if you see people walking down the street, having a conversation with themselves, nobody else with them, but they're talking or they're singing, it's not because they're crazy. It's because they're listening to what they want to listen to on their Raycon wireless earbuds. And these things, they're so perfect to go in your ears, you can't even tell you got them in. People can't even see them. As a matter of fact, let's say, for example, you go to Las Vegas and you go in the casino and you get in one of those high-stakes poker games where millions of dollars can be won or lost. If you wear your Raycon wireless earbuds and you make arrangements with a compadre or cohort, they can get binoculars and look at the other people's hands, and they can broadcast what they have in their hands to you, courtesy of the Raycon wireless earbuds. And people will never know that you have them in. They better never know you have them in, because if they find out, that means you're trying to cheat. And since it's Las Vegas, they will have you taken out behind the casino, and all your legs will be broken.
That is not
both
what
your
Raycon
legs,
does.
three legs. What? Well, no, Raycon wouldn't do it.
Right.
The casino people would do it. The guys with the crooked noses would do it. The Guido and Vito, they would do it.
That's discriminatory, but certainly people that work in a casino would love to break the legs of anyone who's cheating. That's true.
They break both your legs, all three of your legs. How many legs you got, they'll break them. So that means that what you need to do is you need to get the special Raycon everyday wireless earbuds that are flesh colored. So that way, when you're cheating at cards at a casino in Las Vegas, people don't know you have these things in your ears, because they won't fall out. Trust me. They will not budge. We've talked about how once they go in, they're in there for a while. You just try to get them sumbitches out. And you'll get quality audio at half the price of other premium audio brands.
That's right, and you'll also be able to get them out of your ear at any point you want.
Well, the other premium audio brands jack the price up significantly and try to cheat you, but Raycon doesn't do that. They want your repeat business, and they want you to be happy. That's why they've got over 50,000 5-star reviews, and many of those reviews come from ear, nose, and throat doctors who have taken Raycon wireless earbuds out of patients' ears or noses or throats. And they use them themselves, and they find that they sound better than the ones that they've had as well.
That may sound nice, ladies and gentlemen, but it's not true.
Well, it's nobody has actually proven it, but I suspectify. Anyway, they got 3 customizable sound profiles. They've got the earbud tap functions. Anytime you want to tap one of these earbuds, you're allowed to. And also there's the noise isolation mode and the awareness mode. So you can either isolate yourself from noise, which is what you want to do most of the time, because let's face it, the whole world today is just one big headache. Or when occasionally you want to become aware of your surroundings, then you tap that, and suddenly you have full awareness and consciousness, and you can speak on the same plane as the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Very good. Very, very good.
Right now, full awareness, folks, right now. Go to buyraycon.com. That's BUYRAYCON. That's so melodious. Buyraycon.com and use the code JCE15 to get 15% off your Raycon order. That's code JCE15 at buyraycon.com. 15% off. You can listen to music. You can listen to podcasts. You can block out your nagging wife and annoying children. You won't even hear the noise of the oncoming train if that's the way you want to go out in a flame of glory.
We don't advise that. Nope.
No, especially not on the bridge. But, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
No, you don't. You got to do the right thing.
You got to do the right thing. Sometimes the right thing would be stepping out in front of that train. It just depends on what your situation is.
Well, it depends on the person. There's a few people I'd like to see step in front of a train, to be honest with you.
Yes, it might not be best for them, but it'd be best for us.
I don't know if they're going to do it willingly.
Yeah, well, sometimes people have to be coerced. BuyRaycon.com. JCE15 is the code, 15% off. Boy, howdy, you'll love the way these things feel when you stick them in your ear holes.